come hell or high water, this thing's getting a new suspension. When we last left off, got the wipers working, and then I started on the suspension. That was late January, early February. It's April now. It was a process when you don't have a lot of time, but I got a lot done. We replaced the wheel bearings, ball joints, new struts and coils, and just you'll see. So before we can disassemble the front suspension, I have to break free the axle nut. The reason I got to do this first is because you have to have the tire on the ground to be able to utilize the weight of the vehicle and the transmission to keep that wheel from spinning. Impact and regular breaker ain't gonna do the job. This is the whole reason I own a 3/4 inch breaker bar. This is literally like almost 4 feet long because you need the leverage. These are used for semi trucks, just to kind of emphasize what this takes. But here we go. I literally only own one socket in this 3/4 inch socket, and it's a 32 millimeter, which only use for these axle nuts. All right. Oh. Took all of my weight. There we go. Whew.
While this work spanned multiple months, I had already completed the passenger side. So work on the driver's side, I was able to knock out in basically a couple days. But the wheel out of the way, we can get the brake caliper off. Had to remove the hanger because that whole knuckle's coming out. As I was doing this work, I noticed that I've got some issues with the front calipers, so it's probably time just go ahead and replace those. I'll do that on the next round of upgrades. Caliper hung out of the way, we can remove the rotor and move on to disconnecting the ball joints. That pin on the upper ball joint just did not want to come loose, and then it's a difficult angle to work with if to get that nut off, but managed to get it out without too much effort. I don't know what I ever did without air tools. Got the tie rod out of the way, and then had a lot of difficulty getting the bottom ball joint to break. I mean, we're at, what, 10x right now? There we go. The top one came out without too much struggle. With the knuckle, there we go, out of the way, we can remove the damper fork and the entire strut assembly. I always thought the car was lowered. Turns out it had broken coils. So I went ahead and just replaced the entire assembly, because there's only one thing in life that's more terrifying than an unplanned pregnancy, and that's a coil compressor. Now that knuckle's out of the car, we can throw it in the vise and start to disassemble it. I want to replace the bearing, but in order to do that, you got to remove the hub. And unfortunately, there's really only one way, and that is to beat it out with a hammer. So we get this thing as tight as we can and go to town. There we go. Now, the issue is when the hub comes out, the bearing race stays on it. You can see right there. It's the race from the bearing. So at this point, I went ahead and removed the lower ball joint, which was actually a mistake. I had planned to wait, since this knuckle's going to have to go back in and out of the car a couple more times while replacing the wheel bearing. But you know what? New Moog, better than no Moog. It's Moog or nothing. Before we can remove the bearing, we have to get this snap ring out. The problem is, it's rusted in there pretty tight, so it's a struggle. You see right here where see sparks in a second when the vice grips break loose. Yep. A little bit of persistence. Eventually, I'm able to pull the snap ring out. Definitely can't reuse it. It was at this point that I realized my mistake with the ball joint and had to resign myself to just install the new one and be very careful not to mess it up when we put this knuckle back into the car 2 or 3 times. And again, it's, you see that box? When it comes to ball joints, it's Moog or nothing. The new ball joint requires a snap ring, and luckily it's a lot more manageable with my snap ring pliers. With the knuckle reinstalled in the vehicle, I can proceed with removing the old wheel bearing. I intentionally didn't do any edits or cuts on this section because I want to illustrate just how much time this took. I mean, look, I had to get out the big giant breaker bar just to get that going. This is 10 times speed. Right about here, I'm gonna have to take a break. Another break. It's exhausting just watching this. Just checking, but it's coming. Slow, but it's coming. Step away for a few minutes. It ain't going nowhere. There we go. With the bearing out, it looked like this. When I did the first one, I put the plate on backwards and it sucked down inside the bearing so far that the race got pressed into the puller cup. I still haven't figured out how to get that free, but luckily, as you'll see later, it still works, but it's not ideal. Time to install the new bearing. At this point, that bearing's been sitting in the freezer for about almost 2 months, so nice thing, metal shrinks, so this bearing goes in a whole lot easier while it's frozen than it did coming out. At that point, it's gone in far enough that I had to add another plate to give me a little bit more reach. So you go in far enough, the threads start to pop out and push the socket. So checking to make sure that there's enough room, that the bearing is back far enough that the snap ring will fit into the groove on the front. Also questioning whether or not I need to use a different cup. Put it back together and finish it back up. I bought new hubs, but I can't find them, so I have to cut that race off so that I can reinstall the hub into the new bearing. Unfortunately, this is kind of tricky as you don't want to damage the hub. Don't want to cut too deep. Once you get it just deep enough, you can hit it with a chisel and you'll see it pop apart. Just like that. Then it's just a matter of drive it off. that's the old race removed. At this point, I've reinstalled the snap ring over the new bearing, and we're ready to press in the hub. Installing the hub is a lot easier than the bearing, but unfortunately I don't have time to freeze it to make it smaller, so I have to keep checking it because you don't want to pull it too tight to bind on the bearing, but also if it's not tight enough, then the CB joint won't seat correctly. Also, there'll be too much axial torque, I think is the right word, on the bearing because the wheel is too far out. So I have to take it apart a couple times just to double check, make sure that we're lined up the way we want. Gotta get out the big guy to send it home. Gets really tight there towards the end. At this point, we can start reassembly, and the first thing to go in will be the new strut assembly. Technically, you're supposed to put the strut assembly in first, then the damper on the bottom, but I find that to be pretty difficult, so it's just easier to get the fork where you want it, put a little bit of pressure to collapse that strut, and then it pops right into place. We'll hand tighten the upper bolts to keep it in place. Then we'll reinstall the lower bolt through the control arm. At this point, we have to leave everything loose. According to the Honda manual, before you torque anything down, you're supposed to lift the suspension until the car just starts to lift off of the jack stands. At that point, then you can torque down all of the bolts to their correct specification. I also replaced the upper control arms. The existing ones were still in good shape. They look a little ugly, but the bushings were good and the ball joint was good. But this is a cheap while you're in there kind of thing. They had to come out. May as well put new ones in. Can you guess who made them? It's Moog or nothing. Somehow neither camera managed to get any footage of the reassembly beyond the strut assembly. But as you can see, it's back together. So what was the point, right? I want to cry right now. Either way, work's done. Get this thing down on the ground and see where we sit. With the car back on the ground, you can see a noticeable increase in ride height. It's amazing what broken coils will do. I can get my whole hand in there now. Before it was maybe two and a half fingers. And we're back to what I assume is a stock stance. I do kind of miss the raked look of the car, but I'll take a working suspension over what was on there before. Thanks for watching. I really appreciate it. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, as it'll really help my channel. Best part is, it's absolutely free. Also, ring that bell for notifications of new videos. There's a lot coming, and I'd hate for you to miss out.